Hey guys, welcome to another anti-chess coaching video. I'm going to review two games, and the main thing that I want to look at in these games is the end game and just some things to consider. So I'm not really going to analyze too much of the opening and the middle game. Maybe point out a couple things that I would maybe do different, but I'm not going to go too deep into it. Mostly just want to go over the end game positions and things to look at. So in this particular game, we start off here, trade some pieces away, grab the knight, which I'm not a huge fan of grabbing the knights. I like to just let them be. And then trading some pieces away. I think in this spot, let's come back. When they capture with the knight here, I think capturing back with the rook first might be a little bit better. I like to just sit and hold my queen and kind of resolve whatever's going to happen with this rook first, and then make my decision of what I'm going to do with the queen after that. And I think generally I prefer to take the f pawn because I don't want to release their rook and then end up like trading away rooks and whatever. Because at this point I'm already like, all right, I'm losing enough material. I want to keep the rest of my pieces, or attempt to, anyways. But anyways, we move through and trade these pieces, and then black brings their queen out so that they can get rid of that. And so then we trade some more, and this looks like it might be threatening, but it's really not, because these diagonals are covered. Like, you can't move this pawn up because it's covered. You move this one up too, it's covered. And so they're going to be able to get rid of their bishop. So in this spot, the question is, do you want to get rid of your bishop in this spot, or do you want to hold on to it? I would say we should probably try to hold on to it, but I can see getting rid of it might also be okay. But so in the game, the player gets rid of the bishop, but at this spot, I'm also thinking, all right, we should really be pushing this d pawn and being not too concerned about like having to capture back and then capture, and so we'll trade away some pieces, but we want to keep the knight. In this game, the player gets rid of the knight. So I feel like that's where, when we get to these end games, we've got to keep our mobile pieces, because when we do this, now we're down to just one knight, and then like white develops their knight here, which doesn't really do anything other than like you're threatening to get rid of your knight, because obviously these two pieces are covered by the king and he's not going to be able to uncover both of them. So it's a way to like ditch the knight, but that's like counterproductive. We want to actually keep the knight. And then black decides they're going to get rid of their bishop. So both players are kind of getting rid of their material. And we get to this spot, and this is just a draw. Like, there's nothing. Both players have 3 pawns and a king, and black's pawns are spread out. I think what white would really want to do, well, I don't know. It's just a draw. Like, really, you're just going to be moving your king around in circles, waiting for them to push their pawn so that you can get yours killed. And black's doing the same thing. Black's should be just sitting with their pawns, waiting for white to push theirs so that they can get them killed. So in the game, they push the c pawn, and we kind of just bring it down the board. I got a promotion to a king, which makes sense in this spot. And it's just a waiting game. So black's doing the right thing in the sense of just waiting. And then bring their knight back, kind of like threatening these spots. And then this is mate right here for black. And so then the game's over. But I want to go back to that spot where we were with the bishop, the option with the bishop. So I would say, instead of getting rid of the bishop, maybe we get rid of this pawn. And now, granted, we've opened up this bishop, but it's actually fine because they've got this piece over here that they can't get killed. And maybe that's not easy to see, but black instinctually might dump their knight in the way that this player was getting rid of all their pieces. I feel like they would. Um, in this spot, they really shouldn't, because if we dump our bishop and they bring their knight out here, there's not really another piece that we can't make another move to grab. Like, yeah, maybe we can push this pawn, but then they can be moving around too, so they're fine there. But if they were to get rid of their knight and then say get rid of their king, and they're thinking, hey, I can move these pawns around and get them killed, they can do that, but now white wins. So you left yourself, like black gets left with this one single pawn. They have to push it, and then white just needs to be careful. Couple things to think of. One, since you have a dark bishop, you want them to promote um, on a dark square so that they can't take a light squared bishop and get a draw. So in this spot, and then the other thing to kind of notice, if they take a king, you want to make sure that your pieces are all connected, which they're all real close here, and we've got this knight that we can move to. So this is kind of more just like a delaying move. And then they have to come here, and then we just come down to C1. That way, if they take a king, then we can come here. So this is like mate and six. If you look like, all right, obviously a bishop's bad because you've already got three pieces lined up to capture, and a rook would be bad. Queen obviously bad, so king's kind of like the route to go. But so that's kind of the first game. Just in general, when we get to the end game, let's not get rid of our mobile pieces, and trade away the pawns, really, is what you're going to try to get rid of. So then moving on to the next game. Need to go from the start here. So similar thing, I'm not really going to go over the opening so much, other than just to point something out here. In this spot in the game, black takes on G2, where if they would have taken the knights, they would have mates. And actually, by taking on G2, this is actually mate for white instead. But I get the idea is taking on this so that they capture here, and then they have to come down and capture your rook. So it looks like you've got it lined up correctly for the kill, but kind of or for the win, but the miss is that they can capture here, so that then your rook has to move up, and all of a sudden there is no target. So you have to capture back with one of your pawns, and then they're going to capture with their knight. So then this is mate for whites, which again, never resign because they can mess it up, and that's exactly what white does here. Trading away some pieces, and again, this isn't like, if you look at this, it's like, all right, well, that piece is covered, and so they move it away, and like, oh wait, now what should I be doing, because this spot is double covered, and this spot is double covered, and so white kind of messed it up. Not they did. So in the game, we trade these pieces here, which that was the right moves there. And now black actually has mate in this spot. And again, it's not super easy. You got to play it right, and you basically going to need to make one of their pawns go through all your pieces. So you got to figure out how you want to do that. I think white has to get rid of this bishop, otherwise they lose. So they're gonna dump it, which they did. And in the game, black went ahead and moved down here, which I think, like, it still works because you can capture back with your knight, and still be okay. But rooks are the best piece in an endgame, so I would hold on to this piece, and instead I would get rid of this pawn, and then just capture back with the knight. If we go, I'm going to go back to the game itself. They ditched the rook, and then captured with the pawn, which that's wrong for a few reasons. One, because you're opening up the bishop, so they're going to be able to be reduced down to a single pawn, which you can still win with a single pawn, but kind of like now you've got these two pawns that are doubled, which is really going to be hard to get killed unless they, promote to the wrong thing and it's lined up to go through those. But like this would feel like a king promotion would be fine, just because you have 2 pawns here and 2 pawns here, and they're too far apart for a king um, to eat all of them. So then white dumps their pawn, and then in this spot, I'm not sure what happened there, but and then the game's over. Where like really you could have gone here, but then it's really looking like a drawn type of position, because then they can promote to a dark squared bishop when you have a light square, or um, there might be another promotion like a rook or something. No, I don't think a rook wouldn't work, but potentially they could promote to something that a king in this spot still might win. And actually, I guess I could see what Stockfish says to that. Like, if we do this, so Stockfish says that this is a draw. I was curious if we take a king. So technically, black can win this in this position, mate, in 25. But let's go back to making a slightly smarter move in this spot, which is to move this pawn up and then capture with your knight. And so now they've got 2 pawns, and it doesn't really matter which one they move. You've got diagonals that you can use to make them promote. I think what I'm doing here is I'm uncovering, like, I don't want my bishop on this diagonal, and it's also kind of like a delaying move, like I'm forcing them to move up. So we can block that, and then they have to move or whatever. And so at this point, now you can grab this pawn and force them to promote. And because you have mobile pieces, you have a knight and a rook and a bishop. And then also knowing that, like, where your knight's sitting right now, you can go here and then here. So those 2 pieces can get killed. So if they were to take a king, like, you can still line it up. And so that's kind of the point of this move, is so that I can get my bishop to here or here, depending on the order that I'm gonna go in. So I'd probably go here first. So if they take a king, we get there, and then we can get our outside pawn killed up. There's just a delaying move, and move through and get the win there. So I don't want to go all the way back. Yeah, so I think in this spot, like, endgame stuff to think about. Keep your rooks, get rid of your pawns. Yeah, let's go that way. And that way, you have more options. Like, you want to keep the mobile pieces. So I think that's where I'll stop for this one. I've got, again, more of these that I'm going to keep doing. So we'll see you guys next time.